Experts, those highly trained, often brilliant individuals we traditionally turn to for direction, have shaped the course of societies for centuries. Their knowledge and experience offer a sense of certainty and order in a world that often feels uncertain and chaotic. But in our collective pursuit of progress, we seldom pause to ask, what happens when the expertise we trust so much becomes a rigid doctrine, blinding even the brightest minds to the unpredictable reality of human life? Today, we embark on a critical exploration of this paradox. How expertise, when constrained by unbending theoretical frameworks, can sometimes lead not to enlightenment or progress, but to profound and even tragic missteps. Let's ground this inquiry with a vivid historical case. In the 1970s, Chile became the unlikely laboratory for a sweeping economic experiment. The Chicago Boys, a group of Chilean economists trained under Milton Friedman at the University of Chicago, brought home the hard-edged doctrines of free market capitalism, privatization, deregulation, fiscal austerity, and the near-total removal of government intervention. Their models were clean, elegant, substantiated by mathematical equations and decades of Western economic thought. These theorists saw Pinochet's military dictatorship as a moment to reshape an entire society, swiftly and decisively. At first, their calculations appeared to materialize in reality. GDP climbed, macroeconomic indicators suggested recovery from previous stagnation. The world's financial press, policymakers, and academic circles extolled the Chilean miracle. But as any keen observer of history knows, numbers sometimes conceal more than they reveal. Beneath the graphs and statistical models, ordinary Chileans grappled with skyrocketing unemployment, dismantled public services, and a social fabric that was rapidly eroding. The theoretical clarity of the Chicago School's models became a double-edged sword, so focused on supply and demand, market incentives, and productivity that they lost sight of the lived experience. By the late 1980s, nearly half the population was living in poverty, and the chasm between rich and poor gaped wider than ever before. This is no isolated incident. Throughout history, societies have witnessed versions of this same mistake, played out in various domains: urban planning, technology, education, and beyond. Consider the post-war city planners of North America. Fascinated by traffic flow dynamics, they designed cities to accommodate cars rather than communities. Walkable neighborhoods and lively public squares gave way to isolated suburbs and endless expressways, fragmenting the social bonds that hold neighborhoods together. The theoretical pursuit of efficiency and speed, mapped out in city plans and engineering diagrams, brought a cultural cost: loneliness, dependence on automobiles, and declining mental health. Or reflect on the rise of the gig economy in recent decades, which promised workers unprecedented flexibility and autonomy. On paper, platforms like Uber and TaskRabbit appeared revolutionary. Algorithms efficiently matched supply with demand, maximizing productivity as predicted by their creators. In practice, millions found themselves in unstable, low-paying jobs, without the security or benefits that traditional employment provides. The models held up in boardrooms and spreadsheets, but reality painted a more complex picture, one filled with stress, uncertainty, and deepening inequality. What drives these oversights? At the core is the nature, and perhaps the danger, of expertise itself. Experts are processes for simplifying and solving. They compress the infinite complexity of life into formulas, blueprints, and protocols. This effort is noble and often necessary, but models necessarily exclude. They set boundaries, label certain variables as noise, and prioritize what they can measure, calculate, or predict. In doing so, they risk slipping into abstraction, a world of charts, graphs, and theories that can drift dangerously far from the messiness of actual lived experience. Why do we, as individuals and societies, so frequently fall for this trap? Part of the answer is our shared craving for certainty, especially in turbulent times. When experts step forward with answers, we are wooed by their confidence and credentials. The Chilean public, beleaguered and longing for stability after years of upheaval, invested hope in the Chicago Boys' promise of prosperity. Likewise, we often buy into diet fads, productivity hacks, or investment strategies presented by authoritative voices, even against our own instincts. But this temptation is only half the story. Expert communities, insulated by the prestige of their credentials and the dense logic of their models, often struggle to admit error or acknowledge the limits of their frameworks. The same isolating error occurs in medicine, engineering, and science. Fascinating new technologies or treatments are lauded, only for unforeseen social, psychological, or environmental consequences to emerge years later. To navigate this paradox, we must learn to balance expert knowledge with humility, context, and lived experience. First, let's cultivate radical questioning. Whenever we encounter expert advice, we ought to ask, what assumptions does this model rest upon? What realities or voices are absent from its equations? In the case of the Chicago Boys, they disregarded Chile's history, culture, and deep social traditions. For urban planners, the joie de vivre of vibrant city life was omitted from the metrics. When we habitually question, we encourage a deeper curiosity and a more critical engagement, qualities vital in an era of information overload. Second, we must learn to honor practical wisdom alongside theoretical idealism. Human beings have thrived for millennia not solely because of grand abstractions, but through hard-won, embodied knowledge. The customs of communities, families, and individuals navigating reality on the ground. In India, farmers who resisted expert-imposed monoculture in favor of traditional polyculture often maintained healthier soils and more resilient harvests. In our own lives, blending external advice with what resonates with our values and context often leads to better decisions. Third, resilience is key. We cannot predict all future failures, but we can prepare for them by staying flexible in our thinking and habits. When a productivity method or business plan doesn't yield results, the ability to adapt rather than double down offers a path forward. Diversifying sources of knowledge, remaining open to feedback, and cultivating a network of varied perspectives reduces our vulnerability to unexamined dogma. Fourth, we should demand accountability, not just from experts or leaders, but from ourselves. Rather than treating models or advice as gospel, seek out evidence of outcomes. Ask for transparency. This could mean following up on policy results, scrutinizing the track records of those doling out advice, or simply tracking whether a lifestyle change genuinely improves our well-being. Fifth, we must respect culture and context. The failures of the Chicago Boys and countless urban planners stem, in part, from imposing foreign ideas on unique cultures. Attending respectfully to local wisdom, customs, and stories not only prevents alienation, but often reveals subtle insights that transcend the reach of global one-size-fits-all models. An additional, often overlooked element is ethics. When models are designed to maximize efficiency, profit, or output, the human costs are frequently omitted. Who gains from these models? Who suffers? The resilience, dignity, and well-being of individuals should never be sidelined in the name of abstract metrics. So, what steps can we take to embody this wisdom? Begin by identifying one area in your life dominated by expert advice: diet, career planning, relationships. Investigate the origins and assumptions underpinning that advice. Cross-reference it with your own experience and the lived wisdom of your community. Pilot new approaches safely. Reflect and iterate based on actual results, not idealized predictions. Share your journey and insights so that others too might learn from your experience rather than repeating the cycle of blind adherence. Ultimately, the lesson is both humbling and empowering. Experts and their frameworks are invaluable, but they are not infallible. They see the world through a lens, powerful but inevitably narrow. It falls to us, as individuals and citizens, to recognize the beauty and chaos of reality beyond the models, to weave the wisdom of lived experience into the tapestry of knowledge, and above all, to remain open to learning, adapting, and caring for the people whom our choices ultimately affect. Let us strive, then, for a world where expertise serves not only the intellect, but the whole, messy, wonderful reality of human life.